In the midst of the global economic crisis, there is something that will drain the world economy of almost $400 billion this year. As health systems across the globe strain to cope with the growing epidemic, it will kill someone every 10 seconds. It's a leading cause of heart disease, blindness and amputation, and nearly 300 million of us have it.
It affects the young, the old, the rich, the poor. It also affects all races because it's not a disease of one area or the next. It is the disease for all of us.
There were genes and there was adult lifestyle. But over the last 25 years, we have learned it's an enormously complex disorder.
As the number of those with diabetes is projected to rise by 50% in the next 20 years, will new research shed light on how to curb this global epidemic?
My name is Samuel Gachucha, and I'm 19 years old. When I got diabetes, I was about 9 years old. I have been going in a coma twice. I've been done operation to remove cataracts 2 times in both of my eyes, and I'm still being requested by the doctors to go and be investigated in order to see whether I need to be done dialysis.
Samuel is one of 300 million people in the world who lives with diabetes. Whereas a healthy person uses insulin to transfer sugar from the blood into the body's cells, people with diabetes have a problem with either the way the body makes insulin, type 1 diabetes, or a problem in how it uses that insulin, type 2 diabetes. The resulting high blood sugars, over time, can cause serious damage to the nerves and organs.
There's gross underestimation of the risk of diabetes. People think it's just a touch of sugar, but this touch of sugar lasting for a long time could lead to very complex situation which might even threaten their life.
Diabetes is believed to be part genetic, part environment. There may even be a viral link, but the exact causes are still unknown. What is becoming clear, however, is the extent of the problem.
If nothing is done to curb the burden of diabetes in the world, in the next 20 years, 4 out of 5 people with diabetes will be in developing countries.
Long thought to be just a rich man's disease, new statistics from the International Diabetes Federation reveal that diabetes is affecting the poor and the young in even greater numbers.
Overwhelmed by the sheer numbers that we are seeing of young kids developing diabetes. Year in, year out, younger and younger kids. We've seen children as young as 1 year old. The struggle for them is so big that even to get to adulthood, it is a struggle.
People with type 1 diabetes, like Samuel, can't produce their own insulin and rely on insulin injections to survive. But with little support from his local hospital, his blood sugars fluctuated for years.
My mother was not able to manage to purchase for me the insulin, so sometimes I could even stay without. And the first time I have been going in a coma. I went on half dosage of what I was taking in order to see whether the insulin left could take me for a longer time.
Abandoned by his family, Samuel is now trying to survive in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on just over $1 a day. Some days, when he can get work selling tickets on the local buses, he can eat well.
When I don't manage to get money to buy lunch, I usually skip the lunch. I usually take one donut, which costs five shillings, and I just eat what is not required.
Living in poverty with diabetes makes all his daily choices difficult.
You do your best, but I'm still struggling to work up on life and go up, and I stay just like a person without even hope.
It is outrageous that a drug that was discovered in 1921 is not accessible to everyone who needs it in the world. In fact, it is unacceptable that children should be dying because of lack of access to this life-saving drug, insulin. We have to do something to redress the situation.
I hate injections. If there is one fear I have, it is injections. When the nurse came to inject my insulin, I was really crying, and the needle hadn't even penetrated through my skin. And so when she like just pushed the needle in and pushed the insulin, I was like, that's it. That's what I was crying for. And so I just got used to it as the days got by.
The Diabetes Management and Information Centre in Nairobi has a programme to supply a small number of children with free insulin. It also works to educate people about diabetes and prevent the complications caused by mismanagement.
Okay, I inject twice a day. I inject 24 units in the morning and 14 in the evening. And I just feel normal, as in the insulin just helps me to go through the day.
Ivy's type 1 diabetes was diagnosed early and is well managed, but she is one of the lucky few.
By the time they come to us, some of these children, they have not had insulin consistently for quite some time. So about 90% already are showing signs of complications.
For Samuel, the centre provides his only hope of survival.
Although Samuel is past the age where we help children, which is 18 and he's 19, we're trying our best, but we know this is not sustainable. So sometimes we know Samuel is going to be without insulin.
The centre struggles to cope with the huge demand on its resources and is aware of its limitations.
On the free insulin program, we have 72 children. These children are just but a drop in the ocean. You're looking at over 1.2 million people who have diabetes in this country. And these are only the numbers that get to the hospitals. We know even the situation of kids who never get diagnosed. They die before because nobody thinks or is much aware that diabetes in the country is that rampant.
We have as many people in Kenya having diabetes as we have those with HIV. But when you look at the priorities of the health sector, it does not match this figure.
The situation in Kenya is not unique. About 12 million people have diabetes in sub-Saharan Africa. But with all the competing health demands, diabetes is not the priority of most governments.
$1 billion is spent on diabetes in the United States. And a fraction, less than 1% of that, is spent in all low and medium income countries in the world. It means that even the mega healthcare budget is spent on treating the complications of diabetes instead of preventing them.
Today, more than 6.5% of the world's population has diabetes. As the epidemic increases, health systems across the globe are struggling to cope. And the strain on developing country economies is escalating. Nowhere more so than India. This is the diabetes capital of the world. 50 million people here have it, and it costs the Indian economy nearly $40 billion each year. At his research lab in Pune, Western India, Dr. Yajnik and his team are trying to find out what causes it.
When I was a student, diabetes was a simple disorder. There were genes and there was adult lifestyle. But over the last 25 years, we have learned it's an enormously complex disorder.
His ambitious research project is studying families over generations. The initial findings mark a breakthrough in our understanding of diabetes.
It starts right when you're growing in mother's womb. The risk increases depending on your growth in the childhood, and then further the risk as your lifestyle in the adult. The environment tells the genes how to function, and the new paradigm shift our research has introduced is that it's the environment in the womb. The mother's nutrition, mother's metabolism determines a substantial part of risk of diabetes.
The research provides a clue to tackling diabetes in countries where there is high maternal malnutrition. It also begins to explain the prevalence of diabetes in rapidly developing countries where obesity is on the rise.
If you are undernourished in womb, but you are relatively overnourished in later life, that's a bad combination to get diabetes. And this seems to be happening in most of the developing countries. The children are born in the village, they migrate to the town and become fat adults.
In part 2, we see how Dr. Yajnik is trying to improve the lifestyle of his patients to prevent type 2 diabetes in the next generation.
ज्यावेळेस डायबिटीज डिटेक्ट झाला त्यावेळेस मला भीती एकच होती की त्याला डायबिटीज होऊ नये.
And we see a government begin to take control of the diabetes situation in its country.
We in Kenya, we have responded to this global call, and we have woken up.
It's festival time in the bustling city of Pune, Western India. As the city's 4 million commuters make their way to work, flower stalls start the day's trade and sweet shops are filled with customers. This is the epicenter of diabetes in the world, and it's no coincidence that obesity is at alarming levels.
If you look at some populations in India, culturally, it would be considered bad if you're not overweight and centrally obese by 25 years of age. That's a sign of success in life. So they would actually strive to become that, and that of course increases the risk of diabetes.
At the Pune Diabetes Clinic, they see over 500 patients a week, many of whom are overweight.
You're taking the injection every week?
Every week, yeah.
And are you feeling all right?
Absolutely.
Most patients here have type 2 diabetes. Unlike type 1, which can't be prevented, type 2 diabetes is often a consequence of aging and unhealthy living. Although the condition can often be managed with diet and exercise, it may go undetected for years, which can lead to life-threatening complications.
मेरा राइट साइड में जख्म बोलते हैं ना उसको, वो हो गई थी और वो क्योर नहीं हो रही थी 1 साल तक. पैर को बड़ा बड़ा 2 जगह फुंसी आ गया था. मैं बहुत डर गया था कि ये क्या हो रहा है. और ये जो चारों उंगलियां थी ये बिल्कुल ब्लैकिश होने लगी थी. इसलिए मैं डॉक्टर से बात किया, फ़ोन किया और हॉस्पिटल में जॉइंट हो गया. घुटने तक पैर काट के लेना, तो सुन के फीलिंग बहुत बढ़ गया मेरा. तो मैं खुद को संवारा कि इतने लोग बाजू खड़े हैं, तो सबको फिर अंदर गए.
Mr. Pawar's case is not unique. Somewhere in the world, a leg is lost to diabetes every 30 seconds, often from something that started as a simple wound.
When he got diabetes, he treated it for a few months, and once he started feeling better, He continued his lifestyle, he ignored his diabetes, and within a few years, his nerves were not able to transmit the sensations. He came to us with a gangrene of the foot, which needed amputation.
Mr. Pawar lost 10 kilos through his illness, but was overweight for many years.
He was working as an engineer in an automobile factory. He had the changing shifts to compare with, and that probably increased the risk of diabetes just because of the stress of his lifestyle.
If nothing is done, the number of people in India with diabetes is set to reach 90 million in the next 20 years. This explosion in cases caused Dr. Yajnik to investigate whether Indians might be predisposed to the condition.
So if you compare an Indian and a European who have same weight, Indians have higher body fat percent for each kilogram weight which they carry. This means that Indians have at least 5 times higher risk than a European.
A major risk factor in many chronic diseases, obesity has particular relevance to type 2 diabetes, because high body fat can make it more difficult for the cells of the body to use glucose from the blood. The obesity problem is further exacerbated by India's rapid development and urbanization in recent years.
कामामध्ये आणि याच्यामध्ये आता इतकी लाईफस्टाईल चेंज झाली की त्यात आपण नाही चेंज करत. आधीची जी लाईफस्टाईल होती ती खूप वेगळी होती. आपण आता जंक फूडकडे जास्त अट्रॅक्ट झालेलो आहे.
Just as maternal malnutrition increases the child's future risk of diabetes, the groundbreaking research has now established that maternal obesity also increases the risk.
Increasingly in the developing world, the mothers are growing fat at a young age, and they are developing high glucose in pregnancy, what we call gestational diabetes. And fat mother with a gestational diabetes produces a big baby. And this will lead to not only type 2 diabetes, but also of increased type 1 diabetes, which we are already seeing in our clinic.
A larger population of Indian women develop diabetes during pregnancy than, say, those in the United States, and it puts both mothers and babies at risk.
ज्यावेळेस डायबिटीस डिटेक्ट झाला त्यावेळेस मला भीती एकच होती की त्याला डायबिटीस होऊ नये. त्याची अशीच पुढे काळजी मला घ्यायची आहे, कारण त्याला डायबिटीस होऊ नये, त्याचे चान्सेस वाढू शकतात.
Dr. Yajnik's new life cycle approach to diabetes has established the complexity of its causes. But what hope does it provide for tackling the problem?
There's no one simple easy solution to diabetes. We must tackle it from the roots. The investment in the young woman's health is the best investment which the policymakers can think of. A nation which will improve the health of the young girls will probably curtail the risk of diabetes and heart disease in the next generation.
He's also working with older patients to help them change their lifestyles. Mr. Pawar has made good progress, and today he's being discharged from hospital.
Yes, you can swell the leg also, foot also, and this is costing almost 40,000. 40,000. So this is, at present I am not going to afford 40,000, but I can afford up to this level, 16,000. तो जो भी मनी जाता है अपने पॉकेट से ही जाता है. Economically I am very poor now. This disease has made me poor.
He's determined to change his lifestyle, but his condition has cost him and the local health service dearly.
We must educate people to improve their lifestyle so that they don't get diabetes in the first place. This involves changing their diet, exercising more, and also reducing the stress in the life. This information needs to be provided to every person in the country, every person in the world.
It's the week leading up to World Diabetes Day, and Kenya is marking the occasion. Following the UN resolution on tackling diabetes, the Ministry of Health has set up a medical camp, and thousands from the local community are flocking to get free testing and advice.
We in Kenya, we have responded to this global call, and we have woken up.
The government has begun to enhance capacity at local health centres to improve support and screening for diabetes, and pledges to further increase the budget in the future.
There are too many cases like Samuel in this country who have complications. But with a day like this and the commitment from the Ministry of Health, we know that there is a lot of hope for the diabetics in this country.
If you have diabetes in the United States, your chances of survival are extremely high. Whereas in most low and medium income countries, a child with type 1 diabetes would only live for a few months. We need sustainable solutions, and these sustainable solutions must pass through the government.
I am living in a life which is not properly raised up, but I think I can still do better if I have a ability to manage the conditions, the problems with my diabetes.